Test. Okay, back again in another emoji broadcast, podcast, live stream, or whatever it is. So basically, I'm in the unintentional free time in the weekend, which basically, after finally had another physical hangout with college friend that's basically already moved on into the next step of their life, which, yeah, obviously, it's definitely gonna be not able to be do it again until many months perhaps in the future, because yeah, one of them is also gonna come back into the overseas. Besides, yeah, for some reason it's also quite exhausted, because yeah, I basically try to do a very long trip and try to come back into my usual place by walking, which I have already not tried to do it for a while, because usually I basically try to be picked up by private public transportation, which basically specific for nearby destination perhaps, because yeah, it's basically just a motorcycle with additional wheels, I guess. So yeah, for some reason I basically try to do the things that maybe I already not tried to do for several years, and it's definitely pretty exhausted. I think the last time that I tried to do is probably before the pandemic. So yeah, I don't know, maybe the pandemic is definitely make me weak, I don't know, because yeah, for some reason I just don't know why, it's just feel very exhausted. Maybe the heat also higher than usual, I don't know, maybe because of global warming for several years, or maybe from the pollution, I don't know, but at least I definitely feel aging on myself perhaps, while I definitely still have a lot of things that I basically wanted to do, but I don't know whether it will just pass, and I basically need to focus on more major stuff, obviously. And yeah, I don't know what else that I basically want to talk about, because for some reason I basically don't know what kind of things that I basically want to talk about. Man, I'm just trying to repeat words over and over again, although the age is supposed to be in the golden, in the peak, in terms of stamina or in terms of strength perhaps, and yeah, it will go way down until we eventually gone from this world, unless you are trying to do various kind of things to make you, to keep you stronger perhaps, if you basically try to do a lot of workout, which I have been not done for a while as well, because yeah, I don't know, because I always consider that a public swimming pool to be dirty, even though I used to really like going there. But yeah, ever since the pandemic, obviously, it's just still have some afraid to, I don't know, to get infected by a virus from the public swimming pool, even though, yeah, obviously, having a private swimming pool is definitely not gonna be cheap, especially when you basically need to have a lot of room to basically store your swimming pool, whether it is a permanent one or the temporary one. But yeah, if you basically try to do a temporary one, it's also not, still not available, that basically have a very small size but deep enough so that you can basically create what's so called as the swimming treadmill, which is pretty cool. I always dream about those things, and it's already exists for more than 10 years in the US perhaps, but yeah, it's never been available here in this country unless you try to do it custom using, I don't know, like a permanent swimming pool, or maybe like a temporary swimming pool, but it was completely built from scratch. I don't know whether it is gonna be easy to basically withstand the pressure of the water, because the more deep that the water, it's, although it's basically in a small size, it's basically need to have a very strong foundation perhaps. So that's the reason why if you talk about the glass swimming pool, it's basically pretty expensive in terms of the glass, because you need to have a very thick glass in order to keep, in order to, I don't know, equally with the water pressure in the deepest level, although it's basically definitely less than 2 meters, or even it can be more than that. I don't know, because obviously if you talk about glass aquarium, it's definitely pretty expensive to build, and I don't think there is actually so many luxury real estate that have fully glass swimming pool, which is pretty cool. It's basically remind me of some of the science fiction movie, which basically able to create a pipe of water made fully by glass, which is remind me of water cooling for a PC, but in a much bigger size that you can basically fit in those pipe, which is pretty cool. But yeah, I basically never see any kind of water park that have a fully transparent water slide. Maybe because yeah, the ability to create those massive crystal pipe is just not available in terms of the technology. I don't know, because obviously it need to use an acrylic instead of glass or tempered glass, because yeah, if it was break, to maximize the flexibility, so in order to not break like a good regular glass, even though I think acrylic still able to be break, I guess, or it's just pretty impossible, I don't know, because yeah, there is no acrylic that as hard as a carbon fiber, which is the strongest synthetic material, I guess. But yeah, that's just a dream that basically not supposed to be exactly like that, because having a private swimming pool is already a very big dream, especially for the maintenance, which definitely gonna be pretty expensive, because in order to fill the water with a 4 meter cubic of water, or 6, actually it's 8, if you basically try to make a very small swimming pool but deep enough with the size of a bed perhaps, then yeah, you basically need to have 8,000 liters of water, which is pretty crazy, because I think the overall usage that we actually use for taking a bath is basically only 100 liters or less, maybe. So it's basically equal to 80 days of your regular water usage for taking a bath or doing other things. So that's the reason why if you try to fill it with a water that basically come from a water truck, so it's basically pretty expensive. I think one truck is equal to around $50 if I'm not mistaken, because, and it's, I think it's still less than 8,000 liter, or it's actually more, I'm not sure. But if you talk about the fuel truck, then it's basically around 16,000 liters, so it's basically can only fill a pretty small swimming pool. Yeah, if the truck is actually carry water instead of fuel. Because yeah, if you basically try to fill a swimming pool with fuel and then try to light up with a match and you basically burn, create a massive fire, that's definitely inevitable to be, I don't know what's the correct word to basically fight the fire so that it will completely gone. So yeah, I don't know what else that I basically want to talk about, because obviously at the time that I finally arrived on my usual place, I basically not try to do a personal productivity things immediately, because yeah, I basically need to lay down for a while because I'm very exhausted after walking for around 1 kilometers, or it's actually more than that. Because yeah, besides before I basically walk from the nearest public transportation for around that distance, I basically need to transit multiple times, I think 3 times, which initially more than that, but I decided to, yeah, asking for a favor from one of the college friend that basically able to get me into the nearest public transportation that I can reduce the number of transit from the place that I basically do the meetup. So I don't know what else that I talking about, because yeah, it's already 12 minutes, even though the first early minutes is just full of unnecessary things and repetitive things that I basically still not know what I want to talk about. Maybe I'm still quite overwhelming with the, I don't know, maybe it's kind of like a workout, working with those long distance, but yeah, it's basically nothing if people basically can do this every day or even twice a day, which is basically when they try to live in a more convenient place that basically not as hot as when you basically try to do it in the central urban area, which basically had a lot of pollution, and also the, I don't know, maybe the road is also not really convenient to walk. Yes, because the contour is basically unbalanced, so there is some ascent or descent multiple times that definitely requires more stamina, perhaps, I don't know. So yeah, basically not talk about many things during the physical hangout, but I do try to explain several things that may be forgotten from the last physical meetup, which, so basically it's able to be done at least twice for several months, that for not having any kind of physical meetup, and hopefully in the next several months again I will able to do another several physical meetup again, so more than once. So because yeah, it's definitely gonna be much harder, because there will be more and more people that basically have their own business, unless it was their main job of tasks, which they basically need to do so in order to basically consider them as socialized person instead of antisocial. But to be honest, if it is not really mandatory, I basically not really like to, I don't know, to meet a lot of people. So that's the reason why able to work at any place that I want is basically the dream that I basically really wanted, especially when I can save money as much as possible instead of just wasting a lot of money to go into several places, or even to do the operational cost of working at the specific place only. So next week I basically need to do work at specific place for maybe twice, and the next week I will basically need to do it almost every day. So I don't know, it's definitely gonna be pretty exhausted, and it's gonna be waste a lot of money. But thankfully at the end of the work, before the weekend, in the final days of the mandatory quota, perhaps working at specific place only, I basically will get another reveal into my income, which I still don't know what I basically wanted to do with the money, because it's just not sufficient to buy the most expensive things that I basically wanted to achieve, especially when I basically need some support to selling the current assets, the current parents' assets, actually, to basically exchange it with a more convenient property, or even it's basically just something that I basically wanted to utilize instead of just, yeah, having a very the lowest investment as possible, because I basically wanted to do the riskiest investment, but I basically don't want to do that until I finally do utilize all of the money from the lowest risk investment. Because yeah, it's definitely pretty scary to allocate from the lowest risk into the highest risk, even though the highest risk is supposed to be not that high, because based on the previous years, it's basically look promising and there is no decrease of value at all. But yeah, as long as you basically try to invest for a long term. But yeah, for some reason I'm just not really trust about the system, or I just don't really know about the system yet. I don't know, but at least it's all a matter of business, supply and demand. So yeah, I think it's all related to those things, because it's definitely hard to market your assets if it is very common assets, and or yeah, when there is no demand. But when there's a lot of demand, it's just pretty easy to sell your assets. And it's already 80 minutes. I think it's one of the longest that I have been due for a while, even though yeah, it's basically still not enough to basically make this channel consistent, because I'm still not trying to continue processing and upload the pre-recorded emoji, although after this I definitely need to do those things, because there's still a lot of video that I haven't been done. So yeah, I think